See these socks? They were made in Datong, a town in eastern China you've never heard of. Datong makes 25 billion pairs of socks a year. The entire town does socks. Every step of the supply chain within a 15-minute drive. Datong isn't special, or rather it is, but it's not unique. China has dozens of towns like this. One does toys, one does lighters, one does electronics, one does cosmetics. Each one has spent decades building an ecosystem so deep that no other country can replicate it, no matter how cheap their labor gets. When you order a product on Alibaba, you think you're buying from a manufacturer in Guangzhou or Shenzhen. You're not. You're buying from a middleman who sources from a hyper-specialized cluster town that you've never heard of, where hundreds of factories do the same thing. You're paying the tourist price because you don't know the address. If you source anything from China, or if you're thinking about it, this is the most useful video you'll watch this year. I'll show you exactly how to find which city makes what, why prices are what they are, and how the entrepreneurs who know this negotiate, price, and win differently. I've been doing business in and out of China for over 20 years. I work with entrepreneurs who source, sell, and operate across Asia every single day. This channel is where I share what I see from the inside. If that's relevant to what you're building, hit subscribe. You won't get this perspective anywhere else. Most people think China is cheap because of labor cost. That was true in 2005. But it's not what makes China unbeatable today. The key element that everybody is missing is concentration. In a typical Western factory, one company handles most of the production process under one roof. Raw materials comes in, a finished product goes out. That model requires capital, equipment, and scale. In a Chinese cluster, the same production process is sliced into dozens of tiny steps, and each step is handled by many different factories. That changes everything about the economics. It means you don't need $1 million factory to be in the market. A person with one machine and one skill can be part of the market. The competition is brutal and constant, and it pushes prices down in ways that a single large factory in another country simply cannot match. It also means that when 10, 20, 50 workshops or factories in the same city all buy the same raw material, they buy in volumes that crush the unit cost. In the Pearl River Delta, the cost of electronics components is 30% lower than in the rest of China. Not 30% cheaper than in Europe, 30% cheaper than in China itself. And when something changes, a new design, a different material, a shift in what customers want, the whole chain adapts in days. The guy who molds the casing hears about it at lunch from the guy who paints it. There's no 6-week procurement cycle, no email chain across 3 time zones. The information travels at walking speed because everyone is on the same street. I've been working in and around China manufacturing for over 20 years, and the first time I walked into one of these towns, I stopped in the middle of the road. I didn't understand what I was looking at. Street after street of the same product, thousands of variation, school that train people for that one industry, truck routes built for that one industry, an entire town that exists because of one product. These places didn't appear by accident. Local governments picked an industry, built the roads and power grid around it, and let decades do the rest. That's the part that every tariff headline misses. You can move a factory. You cannot move 40 years of accumulated ecosystem. Vietnam, India, Mexico, tariffs are going up. Companies are diversifying, and every consulting firm on the planet has published a report about de-risking and nearshoring. If you run a business that sources physical products, you've probably asked yourself the question, should I be looking elsewhere? Fair question. Vietnam is the best alternative anyone has found so far. Samsung moved there, Nike moved there, and in 2025, Vietnam imported nearly $200 billion worth of goods from China. 60% of its textile exports were made from Chinese fabric. So, when a factory moves to Vietnam, what actually moves is the assembly. The last step, the supply chain that feeds it, stays in Guangdong. India has 1.5 billion people and wages a third of China's. On paper, it should be eating China's lunch. In practice, India produces less than 3% of the world's manufactured goods. China produces 35%. The gap isn't wages, it's infrastructure. Port, roads, rail, power grids built to handle high-volume manufacturing at speed. You can relocate a production line. You cannot relocate an ecosystem where every component supplier, every specialist, every logistics route has been optimized around one product for 3 decades. That's what a cluster is. And they exist for almost everything you can think of. We've mapped out the biggest one and put them in a single document. The link is in the description. It's free, and it's probably the most useful thing you'll download this year if you source from China. But a map is just addresses. What I want to show you is what these places actually look like from the inside, and how the people who know about them use that knowledge to pay less and move faster than everyone else. You've heard of Amazon, you've heard of Walmart. Neither of them comes close to Yiwu. The Yiwu International Trade Market is the largest wholesale market on Earth. Not the largest in China, on Earth. 75,000 booths spread across 6.4 million square meters. That's roughly the size of 1,000 football pitches, all under one roof, all selling physical products. I spent 4 days there the first time I went, and I didn't cover half of it. There are 1.8 million different products on display, split across 26 categories. Anything that's small, cheap, and sold in volume passes through Yiwu at some point. Phone cases, Christmas decorations, hair accessories, packaging,
promotional items, party supplies, kitchenware, stationery, luggage.
If it's in a dollar store, it was in Yiwu first. Every single day, around 1,500 shipping containers leave town. The people who source small consumer goods for a living don't use Alibaba for this. They fly to Yiwu, walk the aisles for a week, and place orders face-to-face. Yiwu sells everything. The next place I want to show you only does one thing, but it does it so well that every piece of technology you own depends on it. Pick up your phone. Whatever brand it is, there's a Shenzhen component inside it. In 1980, Shenzhen was a fishing village. 300,000 people, no industry, no infrastructure. The Chinese government designated it a special economic zone and let the market in. 45 years later, it's a city of 18 million that produces over 90% of the world's consumer electronics. At the center of the city sits a district called Huaqiangbei with 38,000 businesses. If an electronic component exists, someone in Huaqiangbei has it in stock right now. That's not an exaggeration of how the place works. That is how the place works. A prototype that takes 3 months in Europe takes 3 days in Shenzhen. Because every component, every tool, every engineer you need is within a 20-minute taxi ride. You don't send emails and wait. You walk downstairs, buy the part, test it, change it, and test it again before dinner. No other city on Earth can do that for hardware. Shenzhen is the reason Chinese hardware startups iterate 10 times while a European competitor is still waiting for its first sample to arrive. If Shenzhen builds what's in your pocket, the city next door makes what's on your back. You've seen a trend go viral on TikTok on a Monday and show up on Shein by Thursday. 3 days. From a training video to a finished garment, photographed, listed, and ready to ship. Zara takes 3 weeks to do the same thing. Traditional retailers take 3 months. That speed comes from one place, the Pearl River Delta, and at the center of it, a city called Dongguan. Dongguan has over 100,000 businesses in the textile and apparel supply chain. Fabric mills, dye houses, pattern cutters, stitching workshops, button suppliers, zipper makers, packaging outfits, freight forwarders. Everything within an hour's drive of everything else. Inside Dongguan, there's a town called Humen. The Chinese government gave it an official title at some point, China's famous ladies' wear town. What that title doesn't tell you is that Humen alone generates 42 billion yuan in apparel output a year, roughly $6 billion. The labels read Milan, London, New York. The GPS coordinates point to Humen. So Dongguan does clothes, Shenzhen does electronics, Yiwu does everything small. But I haven't even scratched it. There's a town in Zhejiang called Jiaotou that makes 60% of the world's buttons and 80% of its zippers. There's a district in Zhongshan called Guzheng, 50 square kilometers, 45,000 businesses, and they all sell one thing: lights. The town has a street called Lighting Street. It runs for 10 kilometers. I sincerely don't know what you see at kilometer 9 that you haven't already seen at kilometer 1, but apparently there's enough variety to fill 10 kilometers of it. Foshan makes more ceramic tiles than all of Europe combined. Shandong does 75% of world's lighters. We put all of them on a map. The link is in the description, it's free. Go look at it after this video, especially if you're sourcing anything physical. You'll probably find the town that makes your product, and you'll definitely understand why it costs what it costs. So now you know these places exist. The question is, how do you find the one that makes your product? Most international buyers never figure this out. They go to Alibaba, type in what they need, and pick a supplier based on reviews and response time. They think they're buying from a factory. Most of the time, they're buying from a trading company that found the factory for them and added its margin on top. The factory is in a cluster town. The trading company is in a nice office in Shanghai. There's a better way, and it starts with a platform that most people outside China have never heard of. It's called Iliyobaba.com. Same parent company as Alibaba, same infrastructure, completely different market. Iliyobaba is Alibaba's domestic platform. It's in Chinese, it's designed for local buyers, and the prices reflect what Chinese businesses actually pay each other. Search your product on Iliyobaba and look at where the suppliers are located. When 200 of them show up in the same district, you find your cluster. The prices you'll see are typically 20 to 40% below what the same product costs on Alibaba through an export listing. If you want to go even deeper, there's a Chinese term that professional sourcing agents use and that almost no international buyer knows. It means industrial belt. Search your product name plus those characters on Baidu, and one comes back are government directories, trade association pages, and industry reports that tells you exactly which town specializes in what. You're searching in Chinese for Chinese manufacturing information. It sounds obvious when I say it like that, but almost nobody does it. And then there's the shortcut. Twice a year in Guangzhou, the Canton Fair brings every major manufacturing cluster under one roof. 130,000 booths organized by industry. You walk the toy section, haha is right there. Instead of flying to 12 different cities, you spend a week in one place and the clusters come to you. But honestly, the simplest method costs nothing and takes 30 seconds. Call your current supplier and ask them where the factory is. Not their sales office, their factory. Most will tell you. Once you have that town, search it, and you'll find 50 other factories making the same thing on the same street. That's your cluster, and that's your leverage. Now you have the map. What you do with it is up to you. You can keep sourcing the way you always have and pay the prices you've always paid. Or you can go one level deeper, find a town, find a factory, and find out what things actually cost before someone adds their margin. If you want an inside view on how business actually works in Asia, from someone who's been doing it for over 20 years, subscribe. Nobody else on YouTube is giving you this. And don't forget, the full list of clusters is in the description for free. Go download it. It might be the most useful link you click this year. Drop your experience in the comments if you source from any of these towns. I'm curious to hear your stories. See you in the next video.